I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Before every video, I play music on my phone and it gets me pumped up for the video. And I was literally just dancing right here until about 10 seconds ago. So my blood's still pumping. Not one of my prouder moments. All right, welcome back everybody. Today we're gonna be talking about how to do animations in PowerPoint. This is something, if I'm honest, I feel like pretty much everybody knows how to do basic PowerPoint by now. You kind of know how to change text and maybe click and drag some things. But once you learn how to do animations, it opens up a whole new world of really, really cool things. So let's jump right into it and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So in this case, we have a sample slide here and I want to do very basic automation. I think what I want to do is just kind of start from here. And then when I hit the next key, I want the arrow to animate. And then I want this box to animate after that. So let's go ahead and work through that. To animate anything in PowerPoint, and by the way, this applies to text, shapes, obviously, pictures, you can animate just about anything. To animate it, we just need to click the object we want to animate, and we're going to go over to the Animations tab. We'll click that. Once we're here, the thing that we definitely want to do right at the beginning, in my opinion, is open up the animation pane right here. This is a good way to kind of visualize which animations you've configured, and it makes it so you don't get lost as you start to add animations. So once that's open, what we want to do in this case, there's kind of two main types of animations in PowerPoint. You have entry animations, which are green, so we see those right here. And then we have exit effects as well. So if we click that, we have things like fade. So this would actually make it, instead of animating it in, it would actually fade out. So that's kind of the difference between the two. So in our case, we want an entry effect. So we're going to do, if we click this little arrow, let's see, we'll do, how about we do fade? That's one of my favorites. I use that one quite a bit. So we'll fade that and we see it fades in, perfect. And once it did that, we saw on the right here that, well, first of all, there's a number 1 right here next to that animation. That's showing kind of the step in the animation pane. So we see that right here. We see that it is a fade in, or I'm sorry, an entry effect right here. That's the green. And we have these options below it. So I want to walk you through some of these. First, we have effect options. So if you wanted to do any kind of, if you wanted to modify this at all, for example, after it animates, let's say, I don't know, let's give it like a color. Oops, not white. Let's pick blue. How about that? So what this will do is it will actually add that color after it animates it. All right, so we're gonna leave it to the default. So there is some options you can do there. Obviously, some of it is grayed out. I'm not really interested in playing sounds or anything like that. One of the more helpful tabs here is timing. This is the one you'll probably go to by default. First, you have start. So your option by default is on click. This means if you click on the screen or you hit next on your keypad, that it will start that animation. So in this case, if I hit next, it will animate number 1 here, which is this first rectangle. With previous, we'll talk about in a minute. After previous is basically, I want this animation to automatically be triggered after the animation before it. So I don't want that yet because this is the very first one. So I'm gonna leave it to on click. Duration, this is how long does it take to do the animation. Obviously shorter is gonna be really fast, it's gonna animate right in. If we wanted maybe a slower fade in, we could do something like maybe, let's do 3 seconds. And we can test that, we'll hit preview on the top left here. And you see how it kind of fades in a lot slower than it did before. That's what duration does. Next, we have delay. Delay will allow you to delay how long until it starts doing its thing. I find that's more useful if we're automatically triggering it after a previous animation. So we'll talk about that more shortly. All right, so I'm good there. I'm gonna actually change this one back to 1 second. So we're not gonna modify any of that. Triggers. So trigger, we also could do some interesting things here. We're gonna leave it to the default for our use case. When you're getting started, and honestly for 90% of animation use cases, just leave it to as part of click sequence. Don't change that. All right, that's good. Now let's go ahead and continue down this path. Let's animate this arrow. So to animate it, I'm gonna actually resize it, make it kind of fit that because it'll look weird. So let's animate that one. We selected the arrow. Let's do a different effect just to illustrate that there's some others. Let's do random bars. All right, so we see it animate there. We can, in addition to the preview button on the top left here, we can also select play from right here. So we can say just animate that one piece. and see what it looks like. Now from here, same thing here. So we had the timing and the triggers, right? Timing is how long does it take to animate in, and trigger, and we also have the starting there. So do we want it to fade in after we push the button, or do we want it to just automatically come after the previous effect? In this case, I'm good with on click still. So let's continue down. Let's click this box now, and we'll just do appear. That's just a quick, it just appears. There's no real animation that happens, no fade in or anything like that, I should say. So if we test everything right now, this is what it looks like. So we have that box, the arrow, and the box that appears there. Now it's worth noting, when you're doing the preview in PowerPoint, it automatically kind of simulates those clicks. For example, I didn't do any clicking as you saw there. So let's go ahead and check this out full screen. So I'm going to go to slideshow, play from current slide. So we see that that is not there. Now the objects that are shown on the screen, they're there because we haven't animated them yet. So they will disappear and they'll become part of this flow as we progress. In this case though, I'll hit next. We see that box shows up, I hit next again, arrow shows up, and next one more time, that last rectangle shows up. Now what I wanna do is I wanna go back here. I wanna make it so that when I hit next on that arrow, it pauses 1 second and then the box automatically comes up without me clicking. To do that, let's go back to our animation pane. What we really need to do in this case is we want to click on number 2. We want number 3 to automatically happen after the previous one. So to do that, we select number 3 animation, and we can go to timing, and we'll change the start to after previous. So you see here those numbers, so the different steps in the animation pane kind of tell you at which stage they're happening. So number 1 is a click. Number 2, we see now we have 2 of those number 2s, and we see one of them has the little clock on it. So that just tells you that it's after the previous. So it's automatically going to happen on its own. In this case, I did want that delay of 1 second. So let's add a delay of 1 second. That looks good. And I think that's fine. So let's see what the result is now. So if we play this, we go next, there's the first box, next the arrow, pause, and our rectangle appears just like we wanted it. That's perfect. Now let's go through this a little quicker. So I'm gonna go ahead and select our next box. I'm just gonna pick an animation. We'll pick another one here for this one. And again, another one here. I kind of wanna show you something that I like to do. So all I'm doing is kind of going in a logical progression of animating these. This is the easiest way, by the way, because it can get really confusing as you do a bunch. So let's go ahead and I want to show you something here. Let's say you make a mistake and you're on this last rectangle here and you say, you know what, I didn't mean to do anything with that one. I want to remove that animation. There's 2 ways to do it. One, you can click on the number associated with it and hit delete, just like that. Another way is you can go to the animation pane right here and you can select the number there and you can click the X here, right there. That's perfect. Now let's say you want to reorder the animations, right? Let's say you animate this and you animate, yeah, that looks good. Now let's say for some reason you wanted this box right here to show up before the arrow. So what that really means is we need to switch places with these two. How do we do that? The way that you do that is you go to the animation pane, you select the one you want to move, and use these arrows right here. So if I click up, we see that this box actually changed numbers to 4, and now the arrow is number 5. So I've now switched places, so if I were to preview this whole thing, we should see that goes as normal, and then that box did come before the arrow, for example. The other thing I want to talk about is, let's say you select one of the objects and we pick an effect, a fade effect, and you decide later, we're clicking around here, we're doing things, you know what, I don't like that fade effect. I think I want to change that rectangle to a different type of effect. How do we do that without deleting it and all that stuff? All we got to do is click on the number 6, or again, in the animation pane, we can click on that number, and then go up to the animation bar right here. And we can just pick a different effect. So we'll pick a wheel, for example. So that's all you have to do to change the effect that you're using. Now, in our case, I want to go ahead and show you another thing is, how do I animate a group of objects? So what if I want multiple things to animate into the screen at once together? To do that, what I like to do, let's go ahead and click this number 6, we'll delete that. Let me show you something. We're gonna highlight these objects right here, and I'm going to select a fade effect for all of those. And that's it. So we see now in the animation pane, we have 3 number 6s, we have the arrow and the 2 text boxes. If we go check this in our slideshow, we should see, there you go. So just by one click or one press of the next button, all of that animated in together, and it looks great. All right, so the last thing I want to talk about in this video, we animated all this, that's great. How do we reverse that? How do we exit animate things? So for example, I'm going to clean this up a little for us. Let's delete all this stuff right here. And by the way, as I did that, I don't know if you saw it, but it removed all of the animations with it. So we see now we just have 3 number 1s here. Still the same idea, still the same animation. It's just shifted it in the process because we only have 3 objects on the screen. So what I want to do is have these 3 animate in, and then when I click next again, I want them to fade out. So to do that, all you have to do is select what you want to animate. Again, all 3 objects right here, so I can just highlight them again. And this time we'll go to Exit Effects. From there, we can select that drop down and select the kind of effect that we want to apply as they exit the screen. The one that I use the most is, again, no surprise here, fade, but be sure to play around with them and you'll find ones that you like the most. So I'll click fade and we see it previews it. So now we see that in the animation pane, it looks almost exactly like it did before, but instead of these green stars, we have red stars showing us that it's an exit effect. So from there, we can then go ahead and preview it, and we see next brings all of those items on the screen, and hitting next one more time fades them out with that exit effect. All right, so that's all I have for you in this video. There was a lot of stuff in this video. It's the kind of thing I would typically want to stretch over multiple lessons and maybe a course, that kind of thing. But I just wanted to give you guys kind of the down and dirty how to do animations in PowerPoint in a way that you could quickly get up and running very fast. So I hope this was helpful. This is one of my favorite things in PowerPoint, so I really enjoy talking about it and doing it, and I'm looking forward to getting into slightly more advanced use cases for animation in PowerPoint. So until next time, make sure you hit the subscribe button, like this video if you found it useful. If you didn't, check out some of my other videos. Maybe you'll find something you like. Stay safe and healthy, and until next time, stay nerdy.